Old business. Discussion and possible action related to the gutter drainage issue. Attorney Cornelius, do you have your direction?
I think I do, thank you.
New business. Discussion and possible action regarding call to the public.
So, well, the only thing that I want to mention is the Director Steele, who was participating in the executive session, left of his own accord, and he did not participate after the last few minutes of the first few minutes of the executive session.
Attorney Cornelius, do you want to address the 3 business days on the agenda? Part of it?
I think it's an administrative matter, and I don't think it requires
Okay.
actual board action.
All right, call to the public. Those wishing to discuss or to address the Country Yavapai Fire District Board need not request permission in advance. However, we ask that you complete a call to the public form for the record, and if you are reading a written statement, to also provide the written statement to staff. The board is not permitted to discuss or take action on any item raised from call to the public due to restrictions of the open meeting law. However, individual board members may be permitted to respond to criticism directly to them. Otherwise, the board may direct the staff to review the matter, or the matter may be placed on a future agenda. Individuals will be limited to speak for 3 minutes, with a total of 30 minutes allotted for call to the public per meeting. Suzanne, do we have any?
Yes, ma'am. You have 4.
Okay, and would you keep time, please?
Yes, ma'am. Chris Kuknero, President of CTC, regarding past meetings.
I think, Board, Madam Chair, Board, you guys all heard what I was saying before last time, but I did get cut off a little bit on what I was talking about. I thought it was important to finish. When referring to the chief's, the review, there was something said there, and Chief, I really hope these are words that I hope you want to take back someday, but he says, we know that there are a few who wish to spread hate and discontent about our agency. And we can't allow 15 to 20 people to overshadow the 87,000 people we serve, a majority of which are very happy with us and what we are doing. That's absolutely untrue. To say we want to spread hate and discontent, we just wanted some things to get looked at and fixed and start an open discussion. And to say this again, because this is very important to my membership, our issues are not with the rank and file. As I've said before, we view them as a professional, well-trained group, and we are thankful they are out there. As I've said before, we view them as a professional, well-trained group, and we are thankful that they are out there. Our issues are with the policies and some of the decisions of the board and staff up here now and in the last meeting. We want a transparent board. We want publicly elected representation for the CAFMA board. And we see some things that we desire to be changed, and we're ready to work with you guys to change those. And as I've said before, and you guys have already worked on some of these things already in the last meeting, there is nothing wrong that can't be fixed. Let's talk, let's work together, and maybe we'll agree to disagree, but at least we'll get that open and out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Mark Alpert, regarding proper representation at CYFD.
Good evening, board members. As you mentioned, my name is Mark Alpert, and I am a Secretary of the Citizens Tax Committee. As it happens, I'm a California attorney, practiced for 25 years, but I'm here as a citizen and taxpayer, Central Yavapai Fire District. But my concerns are really informed by some of that experience in 25 years as working as a lawyer. You have exposure. In fact, we're all required to be familiar with the ethical rules that control how we do our job. And one of the really big issues or concerns from an ethical perspective is a joint representation, where you try to represent more than one party in the same kind of a transaction. The reason it's a big concern is because the ethical obligation of a lawyer is to aggressively and assertively represent the interests of their client, which is kind of hard to do when you're representing more than one client in the same transaction, for reasons I'm sure you can understand. Now, there are ethical rules, and I've looked it up in Arizona. There's ethical rule 1.7. It says you can, in some circumstances, have a representation where there's this potential or actual conflict of interest. It requires two things. Number one, an informed written consent. And number two, even if you have an informed written consent, the attorney has to be in a position to practically carry out his duties in a capable and consistent way with his ethical obligations. And I think if you look at what happened in this case, there's serious questions about both of these. What really kind of, now this isn't just a technical legal issue for me. I'm not here really arguing this as a lawyer. My concern is this been set up in a way that we're protecting the taxpayers of Central Yavapai Fire District? Folks at Chino were wonderful. I'm sure they're nice. I don't care about them, okay, as far as their taxes go. And there are a lot of concerns I have at the way this arrangement, as I understand it, has been set up, that I think really make it impossible to have a joint representation. Two big issues. Let's take just two examples of big issues. Number one, what kind of representation does a Central Yavapai have on capital? It's a very important, unclear issue that can be advocated in various different ways. That's very important to the representation of the people in Central Yavapai. Second issue, even more important for me, from the purse strings standpoint, is are we making sure that there's protections for allocation of expenses properly between Central Yavapai versus Chino, such that Central Yavapai isn't in a position where we're effectively subsidizing Chino. Now, what really made this concern highlighted for me was when I looked at some documents and found out that this joint representation actually started before the joint powers agreement was entered into. So you had Central Yavapai negotiating or entering into this arrangement on these very important issues without having its own attorney in charge to look out for its own interests. I realize if my 3 minutes are done, I would have a lot more to say, but I think, just to close it, don't be penny wise and pound foolish. There are millions and millions of dollars at issue here. Take the time to hire your own attorney to get advice on your interests, your own interests, not the interests of all three of you. And thank you so much for your time and for your patience to let me go over.
Mr. Abbott, I saw you have some papers. Do you want to submit?
The papers I have are just a copy of the disclosure. I have the joint agreement and just notes. So, thank you.
Larry Jacobs regarding an affidavit of forgery.
Good evening, Central Yavapai Fire District Board. Again, my name is Larry Jacobs, and I've been a resident in the Central Yavapai Fire District for 20 years. I think when I was here last month, I told you that I would be bringing some evidence, direct evidence forward to show you reference the 4/18/16 forged check, which is going to be distributed to you today. But I think you need some background information to understand what all transpired in order for me to discover this. On August 16, 2016, at 11:30 hours, 5 members of the Citizens Tax Committee met with 5 members of the Capital Board at the Manzanita Grill to discuss issues concerning the JPA procurement procedures and the purchase of the new administration building. During that meeting, I asked Chairman Rutherford if the board authorized them to open escrow with a $50,000 check. Chairman Rutherford did not answer my question and stated that escrow is not tied to anything. He related that that in order to negotiate the contract and the building, the escrow check was needed, but it did not hold them to purchase the building if it was not approved by the CYFD board. I then asked Chairman Rutherford that the CYFD checks require 2 signature system, so at least one other board member must have been aware of the transaction. I then asked Chairman Rutherford who was the second board member who signed the check. He stated Darlene Packard. Based on visual cues of deception that I picked up over many years of being an instructor in interview and interrogation for Reed, it was quite obvious to me that there was some deception occurring, not only on behalf of Mr. Rutherford, but Assistant Chief Tharp. And I believe that they were indicating that they were not telling the truth. I submitted a public records request to CAFMA for a copy of the check, and was returned about a month later saying that they didn't have a copy of the check on file. A brand new building, $50,000 escrow check, we don't even have a copy on file. So I went and did the right thing. I went down and took about 4 months to get it, but I went to the Yavapai County Treasurer and peered through all their records and found a copy of the check. The check was in fact signed by Steve Rutherford and Robert Page, and not Darlene Packard as we were told by Chairman Rutherford. I contacted Robert Page and showed him a copy of the check, and then stated that he did not sign the check or give permission for anyone to use his signature on the check. It was apparent to me that 2 crimes were committed in the use of Robert Page's signature. They are forgery under ARS 13-2002, which is Class 4 felony, and identity theft under ARS 13-2008, which also is a Class 4 felony. And if you help facilitate in those crimes, it only backs up the offense 1. So if someone helped facilitate in that, they could be charged with a Class 5 felony. I've enclosed a copy of the affidavit of Robert Page to include a copy of the forged check for the CYFD board review, and would hope that the information rises obviously to some concern. Obviously, Mr. Rutherford could not generate the check on his own, and several parties come to the forefront at the top of the leadership positions in CYFD who could have participated. Unfortunately, using the check writing machine, some office worker could have even unwillingly been tasked to do the dirty deed. Regardless, in closing, I just want to let you know that I plan on pursuing this, whether the board takes no action at all, and I will continue the 1.5-year-long investigation that I've been doing, and I will be going down and meeting with some law enforcement agencies to take a look at this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jacob.
Chris Jensen, regarding CYFD purchase of this building timeline and irregularities.
As I begin, I'd like to turn around and thank all the rank and file firefighters in this room. 6 years ago, near Emmanuel Pines Camp, you guys saved our neighborhood, saved our homes. I'll always be in your debt. That doesn't apply to everybody else, however. You can see a timeline I've prepared with the help of a volunteer. On April 6, 2016, there was a joint special meeting of the CAFMA and the CYFD boards. It was simply to move forward with negotiations, and as Chairman Rutherford stated, that all that was approved today is to move forward with negotiations. Then, 12 days later, on April 18th, and this is an important date, what Larry Jacobs just discussed, the unauthorized $50,000 check was issued and put into escrow. I say unauthorized because there was no resolution to authorize it. There was no motion, no second, no vote. CYFD Board Clerk, Robert Page, disputes the validity of his signature according to his affidavit. And the check itself is suspicious because the name stamps that were used, and by the way, whoever came up with the idea of using name stamps on a $50,000 check, that invites forgery, but they don't line up. There's something wrong with the check that anybody can see. On April 19th, 2016, CYFD Board met again. No resolution to approve the purchase was done. However, it was discussed in executive session. On May 17th, 2016, CAFMA regular meeting, Chief Freitag stated that the Central Yavapai Fire District and CAFMA boards approved the purchase of the real property at 8603 Eastridge Drive last month. That is not true. There was no such resolution, vote, motion, second, all those things that are required. On May 17th, again, at the CYFD regular session meeting, Chief Freitag mentioned that the board approved the purchase of the property. However, the title company is requiring a resolution from the board of directors. Well, I'm a lawyer. That means to me it wasn't approved because you had no resolution, and it's been acknowledged here as of May 17th. Attorney Cornelius stated, this is a quote, Attorney Cornelius stated that he had contact with individuals voicing concerns regarding this purchase. He has seen nothing improper in any of the documents of the due diligence process. He consulted in detail with Chief Thorpe, and the purchase is in compliance with Arizona revised statutes. The resolution specifically states that the board has reviewed the financials.
Mr.
and
Jensen,
we have several open board meetings to allow opportunity for public comments.
Mr.
Let me
Jensen,
wrap this up then, just to
Thank
be
you.
short and sweet. Hold on a second. The, there we go. The rest of my timeline speaks for itself. The analysis is there was no board resolution, and it had to be unauthorized for the check to have been done. And there's significant indication that it was not approved by one of the people supposedly who was a signer, and therefore it is likely a forgery, but in any case, it's obviously a violation of the open meeting law. So, that being the case, you folks might not want to investigate it. There is an argument that there's been an attempt to cover it up. But there's going to be an investigation whether this board approves it or not, and there's going to be an ongoing investigations on some other things, because there's a belief that this is just the tip of the iceberg. We look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks.
Madam Chair, would it be possible to please put this on the executive session agenda for the next meeting? As this does predate my time, I would like to have a discussion with legal counsel to get some background information and to, and or possibly respond and so forth.
Sure.
Thank you.
any other comment?
No, that was all.
Don't have any other,
I have all the backup documents if anyone wishes to see.
do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.